Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nobody in Los Angeles expected the morning to start with anything other than regular anxiety, quiet talk, and the cautious optimism that permeated the hallways of the Forrester estate. However, by noon, the city, at least the section of it inhabited by the Forresters, Logans, and Finnegans, had erupted in horror. Conversations paused in mid-sentence, coffee cups were laid down half-sipped, and even the steady hum of design machinery at Forrester Creations seemed to pause when the news broke. Finn had discovered the truth about Dylan's parents. No one had anticipated this truth. A truth powerful enough to fracture loyalty, twist family histories, and build relationships no one could have predicted. The revelation did not come in the manner one might expect, not with shouting, not with blaming, and not with the reflexive turmoil that so often accompanied revelations in this town. Instead, it appeared gently, as if shrouded in mist. Finn had spent weeks in a silent struggle with his own conscience, weighing what he knew against what he feared the truth may reveal. He stood in the center of his living room, holding the folder containing the results he had independently retested several times. Science had left no space for uncertainty. Circumstances had left even less. When he eventually sat back on the sofa and ran a hand across his forehead, he realized he'd made his decision. This truth was too large, too important, and too intertwined with too many people. It couldn't be buried. Not by him. Not by anyone. Steffi came inside, her frown softening as she noticed her husband's nervous position. She felt the heaviness in the air immediately. She could read him even when he didn't say anything, a skill acquired through love and trauma. "Finn," she said quietly, placing her purse aside. "What's wrong?" He raised the folder as if it weighted more than paper ever could. "It's about Dylan." Steffi tensed. Finn had shown a special interest in Dylan since they first met. It wasn't unusual for Finn to watch out for others. His compassion had always been both a blessing and a curse, but something deeper had been rising in him recently. Something she had not fully grasped. "What about him?" she inquired attentively. His words came out in a whisper, steady yet with the tremor of someone who knew he was about to cause an emotional earthquake. "I know who his parents are." The universe changed, as if the ground had responded to the sentence. Steffi blinks, inhales softly, and stares. Finn placed the folder on the coffee table and opened it with a tentative hand. Inside was a compilation of DNA results, record searches, and medical connections that went well beyond anything Dylan had ever attempted. The reality was undeniable. Dylan's biological parents were two persons firmly involved in Los Angeles's family network, two people whose identities would rock the foundations of several houses. But before Finn exposed those identities to anybody else, he felt he needed to meet with Dylan privately. That conversation, however, proved to be significantly more emotional than he had expected. Dylan sat on Finn's sofa later that evening, his hands clutched nervously. On the exterior, he appeared steady, a young man with serene eyes, a measured voice, and a stoicism that suggested he had endured storms most people could not have imagined. Finn had respected him since the first time they met, sensing an interior resilience that reminded him of someone desperately attempting to tread water without straining. Dylan sat still as Finn began to explain. However, his composure crumbled as the implications became evident. "So, you're saying my entire life, everything I thought I knew was incorrect?" Dylan inquired, his voice breaking. Finn shakes his head. "That's not wrong. Just incomplete. None of this alters who you are. It just explains what was hidden from you." Dylan looked at the folder. He did not reach for it. He just sat there, unable to breathe, trying to absorb something that would change everything. "Why now?" Dylan whispered. "Why investigate it at all?" "Because you requested for assistance," Finn responded kindly. "And because I could see how much the not knowing bothered you. Dylan, you have been searching your entire life." Dylan swallowed hard, blinking away the moisture in his eyes. "What about my parents? Do you know them?" Finn paused. This was it, the tipping point. "Yes," Finn finally replied. I do. Dylan braced himself, his muscles straining. Finn moved forward, hands joined, and revealed the truth that would send shockwaves across Los Angeles. Dylan's mother and father. Two names steeped in history, tragedy, and decades of complex rivalries. The reaction was quick. Dylan breathed sharply, nearly choked on the realization. His look shifted quickly from amazement to perplexity to anguish to a form of wrath focused not at Finn, but at fate, circumstance, and the lies that had created his existence. I don't understand, Dylan muttered. Why would they hide this? Why shouldn't they desire me? There could be reasons you don't know yet, Finn remarked softly. Reasons that don't involve rejection. Reasons based on pain, fear, or difficult decisions. Dylan did not answer. He jumped up abruptly, pacing the room in an attempt to escape the feelings that were pressing in on him. The idea that his parents, true parents, not the ones who had reared him, were so profoundly enmeshed in the fabric of Los Angeles made him doubt all he knew about himself. Finn stood up and softly touched Dylan's shoulder. You aren't alone in this. I'm here. Steffi is here. And when you're ready, we'll talk to them. Dylan nodded, his gaze remote. That night, he quietly left Finn's place, the weight of truth pressing down on him with crushing force. The storm hadn't yet reached the rest of the families, but it wouldn't take long. Within 24 hours, the secret, which Finn had wanted to reveal carefully and personally, had escaped confinement. It started with one overheard chat, followed by one phone call, and then another. By lunchtime, half of the major family branches had detected whispering. Whispers in Los Angeles swiftly turned into burning rumors. Finn arrived at Forrester Creations the next day, and the tension was evident. When he walked in, everyone stopped talking. Suspicious, curious, and apprehensive eyes followed him. Ridge, too, halted near his office door, sensing that something significant was bubbling beneath the surface. Steffi moved quickly across the room toward Finn. It's out, she said quickly. Everyone is chatting. They don't know the details yet, but they know you discovered something significant about Dylan. Finn breathed. We need to handle this carefully. But careful no longer seemed conceivable. Hope approached, her expression mixed with fear and eagerness to comprehend. Finn, she said, is it true? What about Dylan? People keep telling me you found out who his parents are. So many eyes went to them. Zend, Carter, Brooke standing at a distance. Even Thomas emerged from a design office, sensing something in the air. Finn understood that continuing to conceal the truth would simply fuel speculation, and Dylan deserved to tell his own tale without the rumor mill polluting people's opinions. But Dylan wasn't present. Finn did not want to expose him prematurely. He needs space, Finn remarked firmly. This is his truth to share, not anyone else's. Hope nodded, but concern lingered on her face. You're correct. However, the families are familiar with the outcome. Everyone is on edge. That was an understatement. When Finn walked into a private meeting with Ridge, Brooke, Taylor, who had popped over to visit her daughter, and Steffi, the air swelled with anticipation. Ridge leaned forwards. Son, you have half the building in suspense. If this affects our family, we need to know. Finn did not respond right away. He glanced at each of them, people who had lived through scandals, betrayals, and startling discoveries for decades. People who thought they'd seen everything life had to offer. He knew the information would affect each of them differently. Some have empathy. Some feel guilty. Some are furious. But he promised Dylan honesty. And honesty meant saying the names out. When Finn finally spoke, time seemed to pause. The room reacted with shock, verging on incredulity. Brooke inhaled deeply and took a step backward. Ridge's eyes widened, astonished. Taylor, despite her years of control, slid slowly into a chair with a heartbroken expression. Steffi put one palm over her mouth as the pieces slipped into place. Everyone immediately understood the ramifications. The entangled history. The emotional minefield. The secrets were previously thought to be lost forever. Taylor was the first to speak, with her voice trembling. How did this happen? Why didn't we know? Why did they say nothing? Brooke shook her head, tears gathering. All these years. All of those alternatives. And we had no idea there was a child. Ridge remained motionless, analyzing, evaluating, and wondering how something so significant could have been kept from them all for so long. Steffi eventually turned to Finn. What is Dylan planning to do? I don't know, Finn admitted honestly. He's confused. Hurt. He requires time. However, time was a luxury that no one in this town ever possessed. Because, as Finn was telling the facts to one group, another confrontation was brewing elsewhere, threatening to destabilize the entire scenario. Dylan strolled into Forrester Creations late in the afternoon, shoulders straightened, determined from the night before. He'd spent hours alone, grappling with the new revelation of his identity, repeating every moment of his existence with his adopted parents and attempting to make sense of their silence. Why had they decided not to tell him? Why had they kept the secret? Was it fear? Shame? Something more complicated? He didn't blame them, at least not totally. They had loved him. They gave him a childhood, a house, and stability. But suddenly his past was shattered, and he demanded answers from those whose lives had affected his before he had breathed. When he walked in, he noticed a crowd of familiar faces, some intrigued, others apprehensive, and some bracing themselves. Their emotions transformed as he moved deeper into the room. This was not the calm, unassuming Dylan they were accustomed to. This version stood tall, unapologetically pursuing the truth. Where are they? Dylan inquired. Brooke approached him cautiously. Dylan, sweetheart, maybe it's better if I need to speak with them, Dylan replied forcefully. Please. Brooke exchanged glances with Ridge and Taylor. They're on their way, Ridge eventually announced. The tension in the room heightened. Conversations came to a complete standstill as the door reopened, and his biological parents arrived. Dylan's breath caught when he saw them, two people he had been inadvertently connected to his entire life. Their expressions conveyed shock, pain, shame, hope, and terror all at once. One of them whispered his name. Dylan struggled to speak as he fought to contain his emotions. Why haven't you told me? Why didn't you try to find me? The responses came slowly, hesitant, fractured, but honest. They told him about the events that had led to the separation, and why they thought he would be safer, happier, or better off not knowing. Reasons based on their own traumas and faults. Reasons that, while comprehensible, did little to alleviate Dylan's anguish. As they spoke, the room became filled with genuine emotion, tears, apologies, uncertainty, and attempts to reconcile. There was no shouting. Just decades of hidden pain, erupting in waves. This doesn't fix anything, Dylan said, his voice shaking. But maybe it's a start. His parents nodded, uncertain about the future. Finn stepped forward calmly, giving Dylan the stability he required. Dylan stared at him gratefully, knowing that without Finn's determination and compassion, he could have gone his entire life without answers. The families around them stayed mute, overcome by the enormity of what was happening. This revelation would not be resolved with a single chat. It would affect every connection, alliance, and unhealed pain in Los Angeles. But for the first time, Dylan wasn't going it alone. Neither were his parents. What happened next would be determined by forgiveness, courage, and a desire to reconstruct something that had never been permitted to exist. But for the first time in his life, Dylan knew where he was from. And that knowing transformed everything. The news hit the Forrester mansion like a slow-moving bomb. Finn stood in the center of the great living room, the afternoon sun slashing through the wide windows and capturing dust motes that always seemed to dance when secrets were ready to be revealed. Steffi's hand remained in his, but her hold had relaxed as soon as the words left his mouth. I didn't want to do this here, Finn began, his voice low but calm, as if he were giving a terminal diagnosis in the ER and knew there was no way around it. However, you all deserve the truth. Dylan isn't Hope's son, and he's not Liam's either. A sudden collective breath sucked the oxygen out of the room. Hope was the first to move. She sprang from the couch so quickly that the cushions rocked, her face bereft of all color. What are you talking about? Her voice crackled like thin ice. I gave birth to Finn. I held him as soon as he came out of me. I had the stretch marks, the C-section scar. You gave birth to him, Finn interrupted in softly, but the embryo that became Dylan wasn't yours. There was perfect silence, and the old clock in the hallway ticked like a heartbeat. Brooke's champagne flute fell from her grip and smashed on the marble floor, the crystal shooting outward like a starburst. Ridge was nearly halfway across the room, his eyes blazing. Finn breathed through his nostrils and glanced at Sheila, who stood near the fireplace with her arms folded and a tranquil expression. That should have been enough to alert them to the impending doom. 8 years ago. Finn started, when Hope was told she'd lost the baby following the Stella Maris accident, when we all assumed she miscarried. There was a secret embryo transfer performed at a private clinic in Catalina. The technique was registered under the name New Dawn Genomics. I discovered the records 2 weeks ago, while cross-referencing old blood work for an unrelated case. Liam surged forward, fists balled. Are you claiming that someone stole Hope's embryo and placed it into another woman? No, Finn replied. I am saying Hope never lost her pregnancy. The miscarriage was faked. The embryo was retrieved, frozen, and then put into a surrogate, who carried Dylan to term. Hope's legs buckled as she was told that the baby had died, so that no one would come seeking. Thomas grabbed her before she struck the ground, throwing his arms around her, even though she was shivering so violently that her teeth chattered. Steffi finally discovered her voice. Who? She whispered. Who would do anything so evil? Finn's gaze returned to Sheila, then to Lee, who stood motionless beside the French doors. Lee, the lady who had once faked her own death, who had kept Finn concealed from the world for decades, and who possessed a medical degree and access to every black market facility from this point to Monaco. Finn turned to face his adopted mother. No, the woman who had raised him, and the betrayal in his eyes was sharp enough to break glass. You knew, he replied calmly. You have signed the transfer orders. Your initials are on every page, Mom. Lee's lips parted, but no sound came out. Sheila, of all persons, gave a deep, gloomy laugh. Oh, this is luxurious. Saintly, the universe's rescuer, is playing God with other people's children. Tell me, Lee, how many zeros did they put on that check? Shut up, Sheila, Ridge hissed, his gaze never leaving Lee's face. Hope broke free of Thomas's arms, stumbling forward until she was inches away from Lee. You took my son? Her voice was scarcely audible, yet it bore the weight of 8 years lost. You allow me to bury a child who never died. You let me fall apart every night while he was out calling someone else, Mommy? Lee's serenity had finally shattered. It wasn't like that, she gasped. I hope you understand the accident, the internal bleeding, there were issues. We were unsure if the baby would survive, if the pregnancy continued in your body. Who's the buyer? Brooke screamed, lunging forward, until Ridge grabbed her around the waist. Did you sell my grandson? Not sold, Lee snapped, regaining some of her composure. Placed. With a steady, rich couple that could provide for him in every way. Hope was dwindling, paparazzi, tabloids, Liam switching between her and Steffi every 5 minutes. Finn's face twisted. The child deserved better than to grow up as collateral damage in your never-ending love triangle. You decided for her. You and whoever paid you. Lee raised her chin. Yes. And I would do it again. That's when Hope slapped her. The crack sounded like a gunshot. Lee's head snapped to the side, revealing a perfect red handprint on her face. Nobody moved to stop it. Hope's voice trembled with wrath and grief. Who got him, Lee? Who has my tiny boy? Lee touched her cheek, her eyes flashing with something that may be regret or defiance. They are good folks. They renamed him Henry. Henry James Carrington. He goes by Harry. Is he happy? Hope laughed, making the most broken sound everyone in the room had ever heard. He believes his mother abandoned him before he was born. You stole his family from him the same day you stole him from me. Steffi wrapped her arms around Hope, supporting her up once more. For once, there was no competition or history, just two ladies who had lost children in different kind of tragedies. Finn took a folder from his messenger bag, which he had been holding like a live grenade all afternoon, and placed it on the coffee table. Inside there were photographs. School photos. A gap-toothed kindergartner with Liam's cowlick and Hope's huge blue eyes smiles in front of a Christmas tree that likely costs more than most people's cars. Hope dropped to her knees and reached for the images with shaky fingers. "That's my baby," she cried. "Look at him. Oh, God, he has Douglas nose. He has my baby." Liam was right following her, dropping down, silent tears spilling as he touched the image of the son he had no idea existed. "He's ours," he muttered.
He's really ours.
Eric, who had been silent until now, spoke from his armchair, his voice gravel-rough with age and wrath. "Lee Finnegan, you'll tell us where that boy is right now, or I swear on every Forrester legacy in this house, I will have you in federal prison by sundown." Lee's frame instantly became little. The Carringtons own properties in Aspen, London, and Palm Beach. They are protective. They think Harry is theirs biologically. Sheila moved forward, smirking like the cat that ate every canary in California. "Nothing is guaranteed when you know where the bodies are buried, Lee. And I've known about New Dawn genomics for many years. I've never had a need to use it." Her smile became razor-sharp. "Until now." Hope looked up, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "Will you help me get him back?" Sheila's gaze softened. Only a flicker, but it was there. "I understand what it's like to have the world tell you you can't be a mother. I'm not going to let them do it to you." For the first time in years, Hope didn't recoil when Sheila touched her shoulder. Ridge was already on the phone with Justin, his voice sharp and menacing. "I need the greatest custody attorneys in the country on a plane tonight. And I want a forensic accountant to dismantle New Dawn genomics brick by brick." Steffi turned to Finn, her gaze probing his face. "How long did you know?" 2 weeks, he replied hoarsely. "I wanted to be sure before I destroyed everyone's world." "You should have told me," she was whispering. "I know." He drew her closer, burying his face in her hair. "I'm sorry." Across the room, Thomas saw Hope clutch the images to her bosom as if they were the child himself, and something old and possessive blazed behind his eyes. He had lost Beth before. He was not going to lose another sibling, no, another son, to Hope. He crossed the room in 3 steps and crouched beside her. "We'll get him back, Hope. Whatever it takes. Whoever we need to bury." Hope glanced at him, eyes puffy and red, and nodded once. Outside, the Pacific glimmered gold in the dying light, unconcerned with the fact that a family had just been broken and was ready to struggle like hell to rebuild itself, the right way this time. In the distance, a private airplane was being fueled at Van Nuys Airport. The struggle for Dylan, no, Harry, had only just begun. And this time, no one was being polite.